You can control A.
Okay.
Oh, it's unmuted. There you go.
So then at the end, I'll just do,
And if she has any
Stop
questions, I guess I should put the podium up there. Because
How are you? How are you?
I'm doing good. You guys have a great meeting. Thanks, Danny. You're welcome.
So what is,
this is a great group, though.
so what is this board now? No, you don't have to do this now, or we?
Well,
Wouldn't it have to do?
nope, you don't have to because nobody else is zoomed in. And that's another thing. Just try to remember to glance at it every now and then
Sure.
to see if anybody logs in. Again, Will said he was going to try to log in. He had to take Teresa to MD Anderson, but he said he was going to try to get some Wi-Fi. But as of now, no, you don't. Because nobody's watching. Well, they could be watching on YouTube, but we're working on our technology. We're getting more. We got $95,000 of CARES funding, and we can only spend it on certain things between March and December. And so we're working on technology. We're getting a different camera and getting some different things to help better serve so the community and the meetings can go better and stuff. So as of right now, this is the best we got. So have a great meeting.
thank you.
Well, it is 6:01, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. First order of business is public participation. Anyone from the public have any comments or desire to participate? All right, we will show that as no. All right, so the items on the agenda. First item, consider approval of the December 5th, 2019 meeting minutes, which you should all have a copy of. Everyone has had a chance to look at it. If not, take just a couple seconds to review. If there's any discussion. If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the meetings as presented, meeting minutes as presented.
Okay, Chris has made a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
Lori seconds. And all in favor? And it is unanimous. Next item, presentation by Flock Safety. You're up.
All right.
You want to
Well,
do a quick introduction again? I know you
if you
introduced
could
yourself.
stand on the podium.
You introduced yourself at the last, but it's been several months, obviously, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys for allowing me to be here. My name is Alicia Stanton, and I work for a company called Flock Safety. And we are working on a project with the police department, and so I wanted to share with you a little bit about what that looks like. But before I talk about what Flock does, I want to share with you a little bit why we exist. So, you know, as you guys know, in communities and in cities, it's really hard to solve property crimes and specifically nonviolent crimes. I like to think of these as, you know, those crimes of opportunity. Someone comes in, they don't know the person, and they're gonna steal from their vehicle or steal from their neighborhood. And there's actually only a 13% chance across the country that the police department can actually solve these crimes. And so this is a pretty crazy statistic to think about. But if you ask any law enforcement agency, they'll all agree and say, yeah, it's because there's actually a lack of evidence. And so when you kind of dig into what the evidence is, you know, doorbell cameras are more prevalent now than ever before, as well as security systems. But what law enforcement says over and over again, is that missing piece is actionable evidence, which is a license plate. And so Flock Safety has created a license plate reading camera that kind of fits well for communities. And so to kind of, before I tell you about what makes Flock unique, want to share with you kind of why the current LPRs are not really working well currently. So LPR has been around for the last 20, 30 years and actually hasn't really been updated from a technology standpoint in those 20 years. And so the technology you see now is kind of the same stuff you've seen from the beginning. And it's very expensive. Typically, one fixed unit of another vendor will cost you anywhere from 30 to 60 grand. That's not including the monthly or annual warranties and service fees. So again, just very hard for any city to get going with a traditional LPR company. And so that's kind of hindered cities and police departments from solving crime effectively. And so Flock, we started 3.5 years ago with this mission to help communities and help cities eliminate these nonviolent crimes. And we're doing this with a license plate reading technology that is completely infrastructure free. So it runs on solar power and cellular LTE, kind of like a cell phone. And you're going to put it up at the main entrances and exits of your city. And so basically, the two main things that it helps with the most are investigations. So imagine anytime there is a property crime, something that happens at the Kroger, something that happens in someone's neighborhood, and you can go back, the police department can go back retroactively and say, hey, what was the vehicles that came in during that time period? Oh, or we have a description that it was a white truck. Well, now we can search white truck in this Flock system and to find the license plate and say, hey, this is our suspect vehicle. And so that's the first way that Flock is helping police departments from an investigative standpoint clear more cases. And then from the other standpoint, we've got more of a proactive approach as well. So there's this thing called the NCIC list, which is what the FBI has created across the country, where every known felon and every wanted person is in this list, in this database, and all the stolen vehicles. And so there's this giant database that we can actually integrate into the cameras so that anytime a wanted person or stolen vehicles goes past one of them and enters into Bartonville, your police department can actually be alerted on this. This is something that Louisville, you guys' neighbors to the south, just deployed 2.5 months ago. And they've already made numerous arrests on stolen vehicles, aggravated assaults, anything from, smaller property crimes to pretty serious offenses. And so it's just a tool that really helps your police department, be a force multiplier. Police department, the officers can't be everywhere, but this technology can be your eyes in the street when they can't. And so that's really the biggest value to your city that this can bring. And then from a price standpoint, I kind of mentioned that traditional LPRs are extremely, extremely expensive. Flock has actually changed the model as well from a pricing standpoint. So rather than spending 60 grand outright on just one unit of an LPR, we've actually got a subscription model. So a couple things there. First is we handle everything from install, maintenance, software updates, support, whatever it is, we're going to take care of it in that subscription. And the other thing with that is we've got to continue to earn your business. I know I talk to a lot of chiefs, and one of the things they say is like, man, support is really difficult. When you have a vendor who they sell you something and then you never hear from them again. Well, we are not that kind of company, because we are constantly working for you and making sure that the product works so that your law enforcement, so your police officers can do their job effectively. And so the pricing is $2,500 per camera per year. And then the police department is looking at 14 cameras. So that's kind of an overview of what we're doing. And from the city of Bartonville, we're looking to really capture every main entrance point into the city and most of the major exits as well. there any questions?
So I have a question.
Mhm.
When this camera detects something that's probably, like you said, from the NCIS or your own database or whatever, what does it do? Does it send the police an alert on their phones, or how does it work?
Yeah, so it's a cloud-based system, so each officer in the department could have their own login. And basically, as they go out into the streets each day for their shift, they're gonna turn on this web browser, and they'll send the alert through that web browser. But they can also get text alerts and email alerts.
So it's instantaneous. If it detects something, it's gonna bang it right there.
Mhm.
In the 14 locations, where have you mapped out, and do you have a diagram that kind of shows that you can share with us? Where those-
Is that the link?
Yes, we do.
Is that the link?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
it.
Was the 14 locations determined by budget or need?
It was determined by need, if I'm,
Yeah, we started this a while back, and so throughout the process, we kind of took a look. She's been here before, so we kind of sat down and took a look at the city limits, the town limits, the ins and outs, and kind of came up with a kind of a plan of where these cameras would be most effective.
And if I remember correctly, the cameras there has to be 2 at every entrance, right? To cover both.
For each
inbound and
direction.
exit, cover
That's
each
correct.
direction, right? Because they can't cover both directions. So-
That's correct.
So it'd be 14 cameras at 7 locations.
7 locations.
These, we won't have any on 407. Because that's typically pass-through traffic. Unless they did decide to venture in. That's why you'll see that we can zoom that in if you want to make it bigger.
Yeah, if you click on the little arrow on the bottom, yep, right there.
So you can see that these right here aren't actually on 407. The one by the program.
Okay.
So they're basically capturing, coming off of 407 into the area.
Gotcha.
As the rest of them are the same way. Cut through roads, Gibbons, Frenchtown, West Jeter, East Jeter, Macon, Porter. That's what we want to capture, because that's how they're going to get in and out of here. So,
Call this like the virtual gate strategy. So anytime someone who doesn't belong comes in, your officers are gonna know anytime a crime is committed and they leave, they're gonna be able to see retroactively who was in and out.
and there's this thing, it also notifies us of amber alerts, blue alerts, silver alerts, camel alerts, all those different kinds of alerts. Anything that's, like when we run a license plate, anything that we would get back normally through TCIC or TLIS or NCIC, whatever, this thing will send to us. That's where it's going first. When it takes a snapshot of that tag, it runs it just as if we're running. And then it sends us the alert, and we still have to confirm it, just like if we spot the vehicle and find it, we can't just stop it. We have to run it and get the same, we have to confirm it just like as if we just found it.
And does it get those, like an Amber Alert, does it get those updates automatically, or do you got to get that?
No, it all originates through TLIS.
Okay.
So,
So when TLIS puts it out, it goes into the system.
yeah, so when the dispatchers or whoever is entering that information, enters it, it goes to the TCIC and NCIC, whichever way it's disseminated.
Yep, so it's a national database that they update it every 12 hours, and so we update it the same amount of time.
Is there some sort of a summary or like auditing of the actual cases that come through?
So there is an audit function for searches. So the administrator over the system, or there could be multiple, they can actually see every single search that an officer ran. And they actually have to put a reason for their search. So there is, audit functions in there for, privacy and, making sure that they're doing things the right way.
So the way I'm gonna set it up, I provided over the draft of the policy, is they're gonna have a reason, they're gonna have to come to us first. If they wanna search something, if they wanna look for something, there has to be a law enforcement related reason for them to even look at it. We'll have administrative rights, there's a few more things we can do with it, us. But it's basically, they're gonna have a reason to do that. They can't just come in one day and say, you know what, I wanna log in and see how many red BMWs ran through here. You can search that way. And it gives you a, not license plate specific, it's just, if it's a red BMW, it's gonna, however many came through that camera, it's gonna send them to you. So we want to prevent that type of behavior, because that's what makes people nervous.
Right, yeah.
When you say they, who are you referring to that would come to you and say, I want to look at your data?
Citizens,
Oh, just anybody,
I've
okay,
already had some of those phone calls.
really?
So, because it's, big brother, who's looking over my shoulder type of thing. When this technology's been around for a long time, even the ones that were on cars were more invasive than these, because they could follow you into your house and run every plate that's in your house. You can't do that with these. They're stationary.
So does it detect anything other than the license plate? I mean, it's like a picture, right, of the whole car?
It is a picture of the vehicle itself, and so basically what it's doing is it is taking a snapshot of the back of the vehicle. So it is gonna pull out from that, hey, it's a red SUV and it's a Ford. So you can get really granular from an investigative standpoint if, a doorbell camera saw, hey, this is a red SUV that came and stole a package off my porch. They can then run red SUV and see all the ones that came through in that time frame. But it's not, capturing faces, it's not capturing any subjective data. It's all really public information that is
Like
objective.
a toll tag picture that you
exactly.
get?
Yes, that's it.
So I'm so curious, what happens? You get a ping that somebody's coming in with maybe a stolen vehicle or something. Then you dispatch one of our police to go find it?
Yeah, this just happened in Louisville, I'm sure, Lucas may have told y'all about it, but they had some teenagers who stole a car and it pinged. They got notified of it and they located it. Again, they have to run the plate and to confirm, just as if they just found it. You can't just stop it based on, well, it looks like that, or whatever. And it's in the policy, you have to run it as if you have never seen it before, and you got behind it, but because of this, that's the vehicle. You still have to run it through dispatch, confirm the stolen hit, to stop it.
So it's primarily for stolen vehicles.
No, I mean, like she said, because we get warrants attached to license plates. Somebody in that car has a warrant, or maybe somebody in that car is wanted for murder, or whatever, for very serious crime, and they'll attach that information. Anything that we can get from running a license plate, that's what we'll get from this. So it could be a blue alert, amber alert, all that stuff.
But the best point, I guess, would be that you would go and do something right at that moment. It's
long as
not
we're
for investigative services, it's for something you're doing right then.
Yes.
So like a stolen car drives past the camera that's on the border, that camera's gonna come up and send a message. You're gonna get a message that say, hey, a stolen car is just driving down the border.
I haven't seen that version
You
yet.
can dispatch an officer out to that area to look, right, know it's. in
That's
that.
correct.
And
So
the
it's,
good news is we can be buddies with Louisville, and soon Island Village and Flower Mound, we can all be on the same page. And Argyle, they're looking at them too. So if we can't get to them, and we know they've hit a certain series of cameras, well, they're headed that way, or they're headed this way.
Right, I was gonna say, what if they get from Porter down to 1171 and turn out before you get to it?
That's,
Is Argyle on the system?
they're working on it. So there's, you can, and another thing is if we get crimes, and like she said, somebody comes in and says, it was a silver Toyota that came in and did whatever they did to your house, that's all I know. It's a silver Toyota left in a hurry. We can go in there, me and Lance can go in there and search silver Toyotas, whatever, sedan. And it'll pop up all these that have been in the system. And we gotta kind of weed through it.
It stays on the cloud for 30 days.
yes. Yep. So from a privacy standpoint, we also work with the private sector. We work with HOAs, businesses, apartments. And really because of that, we have a very strong stance on privacy and making sure that, traditional LPRs, they actually sell commercial data. They, do a lot of things that people aren't comfortable with data. That's not how we operate. We store the data securely in the cloud for 30 days, and then it's deleted on a rolling basis unless that data is downloaded and stored for longer, if it's connected to a case or something. And then in terms of who owns the data, it is specifically owned by the customer. So Bartonville PD, they decide who has access to the data, whether it's every officer, just a handful of people. I see Chief shaking his head like just a few people are gonna have access. And then whether they want to share it with different agencies, they could give them temporary access to the footage, or they could give, full access, but there is an audit trail as well. So anytime a search has happened, your chief is going to be able to say, yep, this is who did it, this is what they were searching for, and they actually have to put a case number associated with it.
I have a question. I see here that it says, annual subscription price and so forth, so obviously it's an annual deal, but is there a contract signed?
There is a contract.
And what is that contract time frame look like?
So that is something that we can actually decide. It's really based on how long you guys want the program to last. I would say our most common terms are 24 months, and then a 24-month renewal. However, it's really based on the agency and what you guys are wanting to do.
The reason I ask the question is I love technology and I think this is fantastic. I like one of my mailbox. It's been hit 5 times. Catch that guy. But what I don't know is Bartonville big enough for this to be something that we need to have? I mean, we're not a very big community. I know we're a pass-through community. Mostly people are gonna come cut through most of the time if they don't live. That part I do understand, but if we get buried into something that's gonna cost us 40 grand a year, how long are we on the hook for that, right? If it's not working for us. If we look at it after a year and say, man, we didn't really even use it, can we get?
And we don't renew it.
Yeah, we talked about that as saying,
Was this in the
after-
December meeting? Because I wasn't here in December. Is that when all that?
Well, it's pretty much.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
because that's what we said was after the first year, I mean, before we do a renewal or after if we sign up for 2 years, we need to probably come back and ask the chief for an analysis. It says, okay, before we renew for another 2 years, tell us how many crimes you used the tool, what was the benefit to the town in terms of, and if there were only 2 or 3 incidents where it was used, you look at it and say, well, was that really worth the $70,000, $80,000 or if it takes care of some big cases. I mean, it can be used to track down a hit and run. I mean, again, if somebody saw, if there was a hit and run, on one of the streets and somebody happened to see the type of car but didn't see the license plate, and they can report it to the chief. Chief can go back and search all the cameras for that type of car and that color. And they can draw some correlations around time that they knew that the hit and run was at a certain time of day and it's within 20 minutes of this particular camera where that same car showed up roughly 20 minutes later. High probability that that may be the car that had something to do with it. So I think there's a lot of different uses that
There's two examples that I can tell you that come to mind. We could have used it and it would have helped us. One was had one person for a serious, for murder, was actually living here. And that it would have pinged every time he came to the place that, where you're staying. We could have been right on. I mean, Marshall would have won. So that would help there. And last night we just had something that would help us with some time frame and some other things to kind of help, put this thing together, put the crime together. So it's going to make a difference. I can tell you that. Right there, because she can give you examples after examples as far as, towns that are built like we are that went from solving 0 crimes to, finding 50 stolen vehicles.
Yeah.
They're out there.
And see, that's the difference between you and me. Because when I think about our town, I don't think murderers, drug dealers, all of that, but this is the stuff we see every day, so unfortunately. But
So, I mean,
We've got a big grocery store or liquor store and a bank over there that track those people in. So we may not live here, but we've got things to bring them in.
and they're probably not going to take 407, they're going to take the back roads.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to draw attention to themselves. So that's where these guys are going to be.
talking about the map again, so there's more than 7 markers on there, right? So we're not doing 2 at each marker. or are we? Because I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
14 cameras.
Well, there's
Yeah,
14
so-
cameras, but if you have to put one on both the coming and going of that street, theoretically, we need 2 cameras.
Not, yeah, not every street has to. Chief kind of
Okay,
talked with us, and we, just looking at traffic patterns, there were a couple that, hey, we just chose to get, entering and not exiting.
okay.
And then really covered the, that main area
That's
near the Kroger.
we use Frenchtown and going into Saddlebrook there.
So those are
We're gonna
just,
have-
those are just entry cameras?
There's gonna be one, as you know, there's one way, you come off 407, you go up Oak Creek, right?
Right,
So that's where the camera's gonna be. We'll have one on one end and one on the other.
okay.
You can catch them coming in.
So-
And heads of the street, I got you, I got you.
Some of them may be right next to each other, one on either side of the road, right? But for the most part, if we can catch them on a long stretch like Macon or whatever, there's places that we may have to break them up. We wanna catch them every opportunity, so they don't take a, broom or something like that to try to. So,
No, that's good.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How quickly does information get into it? Could it be like, let's say there was an active shooter in Denton, shot, killed a bunch of people, and they drive off, the officers there know the car, that they know the license plate, or somebody has that. Can it get in fast enough that our cameras are alert, or does it take like 24 hours to get information?
as fast as the person enters the data,
So if somebody enters it, it's there.
right? Because there's a hot list, right?
So for that specific one, in order, like, if that goes into the national database, they only update that every 12 hours unless it's an Amber Alert. That's a little bit different. But what is unique is that there are custom hot lists that the police departments can do, and they can actually share. So if this happened in Denton or this happened in Louisville, they can input that and share it with other agencies. And then anyone with a flock camera can be notified when that happens.
And that's.
Mhm. If it passes that camera.
So then the chief can go back and enter that data.
Yeah.
Into our system.
Absolutely.
I mean, we do that, that's something we have to get used to asking, like, hey, we got the license plate, we'll go in there, we gotta set that up to where everybody's used to, we gotta get that in flock. Before we do anything else. All
Right
right,
on the hot list, is it all?
we gotta get Bolo out, we gotta get it in flock. So that's a step we're gonna have to add into what we've been doing. So, yeah, and that's why we want to get on this thing, because there's agencies around us that are gonna have it. We may not catch them here, but somebody's gonna catch them along the way. So,
Let's see, it has the capability for neighborhood camera integration.
Yeah, so I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, but HOAs can purchase them as well. And in that case, they can actually,
But it still have to be a block system.
a flock system, that's correct. But they can grant access to the police department, and then, with the same audited parameters and specifications, if there was a burglary in one of those neighborhoods, the police department could search and see what vehicles entered and which ones didn't belong.
Is there signage that says, say, we have SWAT cameras here?
there's been some debate on that, on what we should put on the sign.
Yeah, I can understand it. Like,
We have those
some of the bigger
for
neighborhoods might want it.
Yeah.
The other places. I would-
neighborhoods typically do want them, just from a, deterrent standpoint. However, law enforcement typically would rather keep them a little bit more,
Draw attention to it. and
secretive. However, like, we have signs, if you wanted to put them not by the camera, but just letting people know, hey, you're being watched. You could, but typically that's more HOAs would do that.
Are we telling the Barberville residents that we'll have this system?
That would be a council decision. I'm not sure. I would assume they would.
I'm curious.
Yes.
too,
I think it would be a Facebook post from us.
And I think it would be good for the town council to put it in like the mayor's newsletter.
I mean, I
Just
would
show-
want to know if I wasn't on this board
It
that
will be
that's
a-
happening.
It would be a Facebook post, blast, probably Cross Timbers Gazette will probably get a little something of it too, I would imagine.
I'm curious, you said you had stats on similar cities our size. What, could you?
Yeah, I'll speak to a couple examples. So one that comes to mind is Memorial Villages, and they're right outside of Houston. So they're 12,000 population city. They've got 32 sworn officers, and they actually have 28 cameras, but they didn't start with 28. They started with 6 cameras, and their chief, it's a very affluent city, and so they've got some pretty, known people in the city who weren't quite sure about LPR.
So they probably thought they didn't have crime, but wait till you hear that.
So, and they're also, if you look at the list of top safest cities in Texas, they're actually in the top 10. However, when they got their cameras up, in the first 2 months, they actually recovered 22 stolen vehicles. And of those stolen vehicles, 12 of them were associated with other crimes. So the person who was in that stolen vehicle had committed a crime either in the city or elsewhere. And a lot of times when you're getting these stolen vehicles, you're recovering stolen guns, drugs. So it's not just the vehicle itself, but it's who's in it and what were they about to go do. And so the same city, they've actually had a ton of investigative successes with the camera as well. So one that comes to mind, when their homes were burglarized, they were getting, $5,000 worth of stuff stolen. And so there's a particular case where a home was broken into, and the suspect actually left a McDonald's receipt at the place when he was breaking in. And so the police department were able to go to the McDonald's, get the description of the vehicle. So they said, hey, it's a, gray truck. And so they took that information and put it in the Flock system during the time frame of the burglary. And sure enough, there was just one gray truck coming through that area at that time. And so they were able to pull over that vehicle, and the guy confessed. And
So it has like a search function on it, so you type in gray truck and all the
Yeah.
gray trucks would populate?
Yep, so it's investigative where they can go into the system and say, what happened retroactively over the past 30 days, every vehicle that came in and out. And then there's that proactive piece of sending alerts. And so, it's really interesting. A lot of safe cities, they don't realize all the stolen vehicles or wanted felons who are coming in from, Fort Worth or Dallas. They're coming through cities like Bartonville, because these are the cities with the nice cars and the nice homes where they can grab something and get back on the highway. And so, I know Memorial Village was one. Jersey Village is another Metro Houston city, and their chief said they're making 4 to 5 arrests every single week. And it's actually a chief who came from North Texas, Chief Riggs, who was from Rockwall. So he said that Flock is a very integral piece of their law enforcement. And they're a small city too. They have about 8,000 residents.
Well, we have 1,500. This is small.
Our daytime population goes up to 20, 30,000,
Yeah, and right across the street, we have 10,000 people.
or 15, 13. So that's, and they're gonna, and these people blend in with that group to do their shenanigans, and they're in and out. So that's, we may clear something for Flowerman, we may help clear something for Highland Village or Louisville or whatever. There's no telling what this thing could open up. I don't know, some of us may not want it, but
I know you said it could, the hot list, it could come out and show a license plate. Will it associate a partial vest, a partial license plate? If you don't get all 7 digits, can you program it to say, if it doesn't get that very last digit?
Right. So we
ignore it.
don't have that right now. It actually has to be like a full,
It's the full plate.
but from like a custom hot list standpoint, they could, because there are plates that are 3 digits versus 7 digits. It just kind of depends. So from a custom hot
I'm
list,
just saying, like, if the license plate is in ECIC, you've got the full license plate in there, it's a stolen vehicle.
mhm,
The vehicle drives by a Flock camera, and because of the angle or whatever, the camera doesn't get that last digit. Will it?
it will not alert in that case. It's got to have a 95% accuracy or confidence in the read in order to alert.
But could you do a search on a partial license plate?
Yes,
With
yep.
the database?
Minimum of 2 characters anywhere in the sequence, and it'll pull up all those vehicles.
So if you know if somebody just got parking license plate of a suspect vehicle, they can come back to chief and with a search.
But it won't pop, take it.
But it won't say it.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay,
Question, have many cities experienced litigation related to this? They're getting sued, somebody's getting sued over this?
No, none with Flock.
And how long have you been installing this? How long has the system been around?
We have been operating for 3.5 years.
But in the contract, who owns the equipment?
We own the equipment.
So we're just leasing it.
That's correct.
That includes, it's inclusive, everything is inclusive.
So if you guys own the equipment, why is there only a 2-year warranty if something were to go wrong with the equipment? We would be on the hook after 2 years to replace that camera at full cost?
No, so the warranty is built into the subscription, so you see the warranty associated with the term. So that's for a 2-year contract, so the warranty is basically every year that you renew, the warranty is part of
I see.
the
So-
yearly price.
So after 2 years of cameras, it's not like a car, after when that warranty's done, it's done. It's not like that. You're saying we renew the warranty every 2 years as well.
Well, it's renewed every year with each
Contract.
contract renewal. So whether it's, 2 years or you do the contract for 5 years, it's
The
every year
warranty's
you guys
the
are
length.
customers.
The warranty's the length of the contract that you,
The warranty is built into the price.
And if you don't renew the contract, you can
That's correct.
Well, that's how I was also, but I'm thinking about hail and one of them gets beat to death or something and it's,
There's an interesting piece to that, because what is y'all's policy on hail?
Yeah, so for anything, if it's, just hardware malfunction, we, we're gonna send a technician out to fix that. That's part of the warranty. If it's, act of God or vandalism, we're gonna replace the first one, and then after that, there is a $500 fee to replace the second one.
but not for the price.
Yeah, knock on wood, we haven't had a second, but,
We do get some pretty nasty hailstorms.
And I'm assuming most of ours are gonna look like the picture in the middle.
So what about?
Yes.
They're probably, you guys provide the poles, right?
yes, it's gonna look like that one in the middle.
They'll be out a little way so people can't read.
other questions, other discussion?
When you go with this, when do you anticipate it being at the moment?
Yeah, so whenever we're good to move forward with the contract, it's usually 6 to 8 weeks to get the install validation ready to go.
And that's another good question that brings up, you guys are from Georgia, you said, from Atlanta? So what local people do you have here, let's say we do have some malfunction of some kind, how quickly is somebody gonna be there to fix it?
Yeah, so we have local technicians. We have one in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that works for us pretty much full time.
How many total installs, how many clients do you have today, roughly?
In Dallas-Fort Worth,
In total, in the company, for the terms of total.
so we're working with 360 police departments, and I don't know the number of HOAs, and I probably wouldn't be able to disclose that.
She just works with law enforcement.
Just the law enforcement side.
We're in 700 cities, so we're countrywide.
You said Louisville's on it, Argyle didn't work on it, you think they're gonna get on it? What about Island Village, Flower Mound, Denton?
So, Denton, I met with them. They've got some neighborhood cameras, and so we're working on getting some police cameras. Flower Mound, we're working on getting some cameras up for them. Grand Prairie has some cameras installed. Carrollton has cameras installed. Anna just moved forward yesterday. No, that's not Denton County.
No.
So Highland Village is looking at getting some in their parks department. Argyle is looking for their October budget to get theirs in. Crum is getting 6 cameras in October as well. And then
correctly, you said it's a cloud-based system, and only the police department here has access to our data? Is there anything on it that anybody would want to hack into and try to take that would have value? That we need to be concerned about somebody hacking into it, or?
I don't have any concerns with it. It has to meet,
It's
what is
CJIS
that?
compliant,
It's CJIS.
so it's in a AWS government server, so it is very secure. So we have not had any hacks.
Yeah, because it's gonna meet standards, because it's gonna have state database information in there.
Yeah, so it is CJIS compliant, which is the national criteria for law enforcement.
We don't just have agreements with Block, we also have agreements with DPS. So we have to sign agreements with them that we have to abide by their retention laws and their retention statutes and their, the things that we're talking about here as far as retention and who has access to it and hot list stuff and all these things that we all, and every state's different. But I've already got all that stuff is in line, ready to go. If we violate that, DPS cuts us off. So it's very well guarded, I can tell you that.
Okay. Any other questions, discussion? Anything else for you to share with us, Alicia?
No?
Oh, I'm sorry, I have one more question. If we do move forward and we do start the program as we have it here and decide we want to more cameras, is there any discount on additional cameras after that, or is it all full pocket, 2,500 plus the installation?
It's all the same.
So we would move forward, hopefully after the council approves our budget, or approves what you give them to approve. That's when she gets the green light.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Alicia.
guys.
Appreciate it. Absolutely. All right, so with that, next item on the agenda is to discuss and consider amending the current fiscal year budget, 2019-2020, for the purchase of this equipment. So we have the budget numbers in front of us. If you want to take a look here, there's actually, I think there's 2 spreadsheets here.
Yeah, so Chief and I worked on creating 2 different, I guess, not versions, but just proposals, if you will.
Right.
So the first one shows, the first one and the title, excuse me for the small font, but at the top it says amended budget and proposed budget. So if you see the second to the last column, that's the proposed amended budget, and that's including the $38,500 for the Flock camera. And that is bundled into the line item that is towards the end for $63,500. So that is the Flock equipment plus, I believe we lowered the equipment and vehicle funding to $15,000 for that, or maybe not 15,000, but excuse me, year-to-date expenditures. And then the next column is the proposed. So you'll see that it's at $40,000, and that's at a proposal of funding 10 cameras. And that is for the fiscal year to end on a 0 balance. If you'll see the amended budget, funding Flock at the full $14,000 will leave a $15,000 negative balance when you do revenues minus expenditures. You'll still have that ending fund balance of $54,000 to carry over until the next year. However, if funding above 10 cameras, it will start to deplete the fund balance.
And that's the second.
And that's the second
spreadsheet,
yes.
which is the 14 cameras, which basically shows, and again, as I think Chief and I talked about, we've been conservative in terms of the revenue estimates.
Correct.
From the funds available, right?
Yes, so everything is on a conservative basis. You know, it's likely sales tax, you know, could go up. But just taking the exact same numbers for every year, or for this year, and moving them forward into the future years, you'll see that funding at 14 cameras depletes the fund balance at approximately $10,000 every year.
Questions?
So then, am I hearing it correct that we need to stay at 10 cameras? Is that, that's not what I'm hearing.
That was just I think that was provided as an alternative.
It was a little bit more conservative alternative, right, that if we wanted to consider, but in my opinion, what I looked at and what we talked about earlier today, I mean, I think even with the 14 cameras, it's a pretty conservative estimate, because when you take a look on the second one, on the 14 cameras, and you take a look at our the amended 1920 column, you can see we're gonna be at, right now, forecasting 70,550 on funds available line up there towards the top. And so, and then we're estimating funds next year of about $9,000 less. Well, historically, our funds continue to grow, and we increase revenues every year. So if we're gonna be at 70,000 this year, in all likelihood, we're gonna be 72, 73 probably next year, barring any major economic catastrophes or whatever. So, but we're actually gonna only back down only 61,650 for the out years of 2021 through 2024 is very conservative. And even in that scenario, we really don't get to a point to where we have an ending balance of, we never had an ending balance below zero, but in 2024, our ending balance would only be 14,000 versus we're starting with an ending balance of 44,000. So we're carrying over some of the funds that we add each year to help pay for this.
And in the equipment vehicle block line, so that includes monies for new vehicles, new equipment, all that's anticipated there is covered, plus block in that number.
We had talked about, I mean, in the next couple of years, possibly another vehicle or two.
Yeah, we're probably good for another 2, maybe 3 years with the vehicles we have right now. So with the oldest one, or with the one that has the most miles on it. But we're not, when we have a vehicle replacement fund, we can draw from it. We have such, not crime control, the city, town. So there's a fund, there's another fund for vehicles somewhere. Yeah, it's almost like a paying for one we don't have.
So how do you want the federal money set?
That's the idea.
And if you consider, I mean, assuming we're gonna sign up for a 2-year contract, is that your preference, or is that what you're looking at?
I don't know. Is that an option? Or?
Yes, so at the 2 years, that would deplete the fund a little bit, assuming that the revenues would go down. But that's at your discretion.
But, so what are we looking at? Are we looking at were you proposing a 4-year contract?
No, I was initially looking at 1.
Okay,
Year to
okay,
year.
just the 1 year, okay.
But if you're comfortable with locking into a 2-year contract.
Well, I didn't know if the pricing, because the way the pricing quote was stated, it showed a 2-year, it was like a 2-year contract. So I guess the question to you, Alicia, is this 38,500 valid for just a 1-year contract?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Then
But-
it drops to 35.
It drops to 35, correct, on the second year, because,
That's correct.
yes.
Yeah, I know the quote is a little confusing, but you're not paying for install the second
Okay.
year.
Okay, yeah, that's right. So it'd be 38.5 in year 1, and then it would drop to 35 in year 2. But if we're just doing a 1-year contract, it would just be 38.5.
And year 2, year 3, year 4, as long as we keep renewing it, that 35 never changes.
So that's the only caveat there is we're not looking to change our pricing, but you're locking in your price for the length of your term. So if you just do year to year,
Yeah.
then
So it could change kind of contract.
it could go up,
I
but
mean, if their prices go up, their prices go up. If we bought a 4-year contract, we lock in with 30.
Right.
Yeah, so, but if they have great success, or they introduce new technology that causes their price to go up, then year 2 or 3 might be.
Well, and we wouldn't do year to year to year, because if we did 1 year and then we determined that this is a successful thing, we'd sign a longer contract.
We could do a
anyway.
4-year contract, yeah, that's true.
What's the, it's up to y'all, it's y'all's call, what you are comfortable with.
I mean, what are you guys feeling, Kevin? I mean, what are you leaning towards?
In terms of length.
In terms of length of contract?
Alright. I think I would lean towards 1 year, just a 1 year.
I was gonna say, I wouldn't go any further than 2 to get started. I think it's gonna be a good play, but if you don't know, you don't know.
But if there's no benefit to a 2-year versus a 1 year,
Yeah.
other than
Price increase.
maybe a price increase in year 2, is there really that much motivation to do a 2-year?
That's my point. I don't.
Unless they were giving us some kind of discount for doing a 2-year and the price went up.
If we do it 1 year, and then we turn around and renew, we don't have to, reinvest in install fees, correct?
Correct. Once it's
That's a
installed, it's just
one-time.
one time.
It would just be 35,000 for the next contract.
Unless we decided we needed more cameras at that point.
Well, yeah.
And then we enter the installation.
And then additional cameras.
John, what are you leaning towards?
Well, I'm in agreement with one meeting. Yeah, just do it. Try it.
Lori?
I would like to do 1 year and then evaluate it and then maybe do a longer contract at that time.
No, I agree, I think. If there was some other major benefit to doing 2 years, I don't see a reason to do so, so I'm not agree with it. So, any other discussion that we want to have? And if not, I'll entertain a motion for item 3.
What's the motion to approve?
To approve the amended budget for 1920. Yeah.
And I think it's a combination motion. It would be a motion to approve the amended budget as specified
And approve
for 14 campers and approve chief to go ahead and go forward with that amended budget to propose to the town for the contract that's been proposed.
For 1 year.
For a 1 year, for a 1 year contract. Should I make that motion? Make that motion, Kevin?
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
I'll second that motion.
all right, we have a second.
You can
And
word it however you want, Mr. Secretary.
It's gonna be, the motion's gonna be as stated in number 3.
Okay.
Yeah. That's how it'll be. I would recommend it being that way.
Yeah. All right, and a vote. Oh,
The only thing is, in item 3, it says for the purchase of flock safety equipment, which we're not really purchasing, we're just leasing it.
please.
It is a lease, yeah.
Is that a matter of just verbiage or?
Yeah, I think that would be fine. So we'll just change it to lease when we write our notes.
Okay.
We'll put it at least.
Okay.
For your direction.
That sounds good. All right, do we have a vote? All in favor? And it is unanimous. All right, item 4, discuss on fiscal budget for 2021. So again, since we're moving forward with the 14 cameras, so take a look at the budget. That would be the third column over. Third column in from the left, or fourth column over from the right, fiscal year 2021. So our beginning fund balance will be estimated to be 54,244. Chief, you want to kind of walk through?
Sure. So I guess the revenues are kind of self-explanatory there. That's something we don't really haven't changed much. But if you move on down, you'll see that there are some, from 19 to 20, there are some decreases in some of the line items. There was the audit fee To be 5082, I believe, for the audit. Sylvia, we're gonna share that,
Yes, we're gonna share that fee, I believe, with
control.
community
No.
development.
Community development, EDC. So before we were paying that, now since it's all kind of, it's one person doing everybody's audit, we're gonna cut that in half. And you see the dues on the right line here. Office supplies, I've never purchased anything. for Office supplies, I take that out of general, out of ours, so I don't necessarily see the need for that. So we took that out, and you see it went from 1,500 to 100, and then there's just not really need for it. The administrative services, now, that was for like, if Tammy, like Sylvia being here. That had something to do with the admin getting reimbursed.
It would just go to the town's general fund. So it wasn't, necessarily a significant revenue. So we just, to dedicate either, funding to the cameras or to, at your discretion, we just zeroed out that line item.
Let's see, of course, the SunGuard RMS, that is something that stays in there for our RMS that we actually got on a grant from the sheriff's department. So per that grant, we said we would maintain the back end maintenance on, and that's what that fee is set by the sheriff's department. Then let's see, or actually, Lexipol is we have to have that, that's our policy writing software, and then the next line item there, that's dependent on what they send us for the bill. So we have to, that's something we have to have. So it may go up or it may go down. National Night Out is what it is. What else changed? The equipment line change. We've been putting 25,000 in there as just kind of a generic number in case we needed it. We're in pretty good shape with most of our equipment. Not gonna really need unless we have some sort of catastrophic failure. So we took some money out of that. Uniforms will stay the same. That's pretty much it. Didn't really adjust anything else.
So basically, so just to clarify, so the equipment vehicle flock in 2020, 2021, next year's budget, will basically be comprised of the 35,000, since it goes down from 38 because there's no installation fees, and basically another 15,000 for ancillary,
Whatever else, whatever equipment.
Gotcha.
Then we'll maintain that forever, how long we have the,
Right. Gotcha.
As long as she doesn't raise the prices.
Any questions on any of those expenditures or?
So I'm not seeing salaries, so I'm assuming that's somewhere else.
The general fund comes out.
The general fund. Are there any other costs associated, because I'm thinking about this, and this is about the Martville crime control prevention. So your salaries are somewhere else. Are there other costs associated with crime control that are elsewhere? Or is this supposed to be like everything except for salaries?
I mean,
There's a car fund somewhere else.
Correct. Yes, the general fund has a lot of, the salaries, of course, the payroll, the insurance, has also some, supplies and
Our
yes.
daily operation costs come out of the general fund. Our DUC training in there, on a line item in there, like keep money in there because trying to be better crime fighters. So those types of issues will come out of the crime control. Now, there are cities that do fund their police departments completely out of the crime control, but we obviously don't have the ability to do that.
I was just thinking in terms of people start to question, because I have some people that I know that have questions. Why would we spend the money on these cameras? Well, it seems to me it's part of our charter here with what we're doing, right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what
The funds for the daily operations are elsewhere. This is about crime control. And this is an opportunity for us to exercise.
That's exactly right. I mean, this whole,
Definition of it, right?
yeah,
This is basically the definition of what you got here.
exactly. There's the charter of the crime control
Speed
prevention.
signs.
Speed signs, anything to help the police department above and beyond all of their daily operating costs, anything additional to help them better do their jobs, to help them reduce crime, to help them be more effective. You know, whether it's tools, whether it's training, whether it's, you know, whatever. But yeah, absolutely. And so I think, I think that, I'm very comfortable justifying this, and if any citizen wanted to know, you know, going through them and showing them how, I think we've been extremely good stewards of crime control revenues over the years. I've been on the board now 9 years, since 2011, and we've always run at a positive. We've always had carryover revenues every year. We've done some really good things under Chief Howe prior to Chief Dow. And so, yeah, I think this is exactly what this whole CCPD is in place for, so.
And you just have to remind people that this is funded out of sales tax.
Yeah.
So it's not, you know, people, what am I tax dollars? That's going to the general fund, that's salaries and, you know, sick time. That stuff.
This is from people that may not even live here.
Exactly. People coming through, passing through, shop at the liquor store.
So everybody that lives in Lantana that comes over and shops at Kroger, they're funding our crime taxes.
Quarter cent at a time.
Okay, good, thanks. Okay. All right, so it's really a discussion on the fiscal budget. We need a vote on approval.
No, so I believe the next meeting, August 10th, will present the revision because at the moment it has $40,000, but at the August 10th meeting, it will reflect the $35,000 plus the $15,000 for the equipment.
And I think the total revenues in will be higher, correct? Because it'll be another month. Well,
I'm not sure if we'll get the numbers in by then. 'Cause it's a week away.
anything you guys want us to address or change or?
So just to clarify, that 70,550 that's under the amendment, what is that number? Is that the revenues that we've already recognized so far, or is that forecast of the total revenues that we will recognize in the fiscal year?
So it's a little bit of both. I believe the grants and donations are actuals. We have received that much. The interest is also a pretty clear forecast of the interest that we've earned. The 67,000 is a combination of, it's our current sales tax, so what we have, on hand at the moment, plus, and that includes July's sales tax. And then for August and September, we did conservative estimates at $5,000 each month.
Okay.
So it could be more.
So that is a combination of actuals plus 2 months.
Plus 2 months of forecasting, correct?
Gotcha.
Yes.
We did the quarter cent on everything citywide, so did Tractor Supply add to this?
Yes.
Is there anything that we know of in Black Hat that's coming in the next year or so?
In terms of commercial development,
Is there another Tractor Supply coming?
I have not heard of anything at the moment.
There's a couple things, but that's dependent on some other factors.
There's some retail space open up in Bartlett Town Center, right? That
Yeah,
isn't in use, and who knows? There's discussions underway to bring in some incremental businesses up there.
There's some things that are holding some folks back, obviously, from doing things, so
Yeah.
it's kind of dependent on how this nonsense goes.
Okay, any further discussion on the 2021 budget?
Good.
Everybody good? Okay, future agenda items. We do have another meeting coming up. Sylvia just mentioned on the 10th, so anything that anybody wants to discuss or have on that particular agenda? No? Okay. All right. That has covered all of the items on our agenda, so we will adjourn the meeting at 7:04 p.m. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and again, make sure it's on your calendars. I believe